founding fathers gave birth to one nation under God. But that nation is under attack.
Anti-abortion activist is shot.
Quality, affordable health care.
Stem cell research.
Massachusetts became the first state to legalize same-sex marriage.
Embryos must be destroyed to obtain.
He's saying we are not a Christian nation.
Anti-Christian forces are telling us what our nation should look like and taking away our freedoms in the process. We're at a crossroads, and the time has come to make a choice. At Coral Ridge Ministries, we're not willing to see America destroyed from the inside out. Will you join us in taking a stand for righteousness? The time is now for Christians to take back lost ground. That's why we've launched a nationwide campaign called Faith, Freedom, Future. We trust that with your help, we will restore America for the sake of the gospel of Christ. Your gifts will enable us to dramatically expand the Coral Ridge Hour's reach, produce more new nationwide specials, exposing threats to faith and freedom. Get inside information from Washington with our D.C. correspondent, Robert Knight. Improve our broadcasting technology by upgrading to high-definition digital equipment. Launch the exciting new TV series Cross-Examine, designed to reach even more people and a new generation with the gospel of Christ. Join us in shining the light of the gospel in a dark world.
For faith, for freedom, for the future.
As Dr. Kennedy so poignantly asked, will the church forget what so many have fought and died for? Will she forget the faith and freedom that made America great? It would appear that many already have. But right now, we want to introduce you to a promising new movement that is unifying Christians from many different denominations to wage the culture war together. This year, Coral Ridge Ministries is focusing on faith, freedom, and the future. Right now, we want to look at freedom, which is under attack in our time.
All around us, threats to religious freedom loom like perhaps never before in America. In Massachusetts, Catholic Charities has had to end its work of more than a century of providing adoption services because the state was going to force it to place children in homosexual homes. In New York, the Alliance Defense Fund, a Christian legal organization, is forced to file suit on behalf of a pro-life nurse who is threatened with the loss of her job if she refuses to participate in performing abortions. In New Mexico, a judge rules that a Christian couple who owns a photography company is guilty under the state's anti-discrimination law because they refused to photograph a homosexual commitment ceremony that violated their conscience.
Religious liberty is gravely threatened in America, the gravest threat it's had since the founding of this republic.
Now, in all three of these areas, the sanctity of human life, the dignity of marriage as the conjugal union of husband and wife, and the principles of religious liberty and the freedom of conscience, we find assaults, we find attacks on these principles.
To combat this, in late 2009, 150 or so Christian leaders signed the Manhattan Declaration, the goal of which is summed up in the final two sentences. We will fully and ungrudgingly render to Caesar what is Caesar's, but under no circumstances will we render to Caesar what is God's.
The Manhattan Declaration is really historic in the sense that people from every tradition of the Christian faith have come together to make a statement of deep conviction and truth to our culture.
Best-selling author Chuck Colson, founder of Prison Fellowship Ministries, has now founded the Chuck Colson Center for Christian Worldview. He was one of the key driving forces behind the Manhattan Declaration, as well as one of 3 co-authors.
We're bound together by the necessity of the hour, because if we don't join forces, we will simply be isolated one by one, and people are attacking us, whether it's radical Islamofascism or whether it's secularism in America, and they don't care whether you're Catholic or Orthodox or evangelical. They want to destroy you because you're Christian. So it's time Christians stood together.
The Manhattan Declaration is a call to Christian conscience.
Dr. Robert George, professor of jurisprudence at Princeton University, also co-authored the Manhattan Declaration.
The sanctity of life principle is foundational. It's at the very foundation of society. If you don't respect the human being, then there's no grounds for respecting anything. It's also true, though, that marriage is foundational, because everything else ultimately depends on it. It's the family that produces what every other institution in society needs, but cannot produce itself. And then the third great principle is the principle of respect for religious liberty and the freedom of conscience.
The Manhattan Declaration specifically refers to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his letter from the Birmingham jail, in which he took a courageous stand for peaceful civil disobedience on the issue of race. Pro-life activist Dr. Alveda King is also Dr. King's niece.
In the letter from the Birmingham jail, my uncle actually wrote that letter on all kinds of scraps of paper that he was able to find. And he was saying to America, we are living in a time when something is very wrong, when human beings are not being treated as equals. And yet, the church is too silent. The church is too quiet. He referred to St. Paul and other apostles and men of God who feared the Lord. And so, in crafting a document, a declaration, such as the Manhattan Declaration, using the words of a man like Martin Luther King Jr., who understood that we had an obligation first to God and then to government, this is very important even today.
The forces that would compromise religious freedom and freedom of conscience, especially in the areas of the sanctity of human life and in marriage as a conjugal union, those forces have been hugely helped by the sad and indeed scandalous division of followers of Christ, the division of Christians.
The church needs a wake-up call. The church has been complacent. The true Christians need to stand up and defend the faith. So this is a call to the church, first of all. Secondly, it's a call to our culture to say, we are watching the encroaching forces of secularism. We are watching you systematically strip away our liberties one by one. We are watching you try to prevent the religious influence in public life, and we're not going to let you do it. We're going to take our stand, and we're ready to fight for what we believe. That's exactly what this declaration says.